Okay.
Okay, looks like we're good. So welcome back to the Breaker Bros. And today we're going to react to the Bengals versus Ravens. So what's your initial reactions, Eric?
I'm glad they took care of business. I guess the biggest thing is, they had to play Baltimore again, and I guess the prevailing sentiment is that Baltimore has some sort of advantage because they rested a lot of starters, and then obviously the Bengals have the injury to Kappa, so there's some sort of perceived disadvantage. But I mean, ultimately for me, I just think it's like a relief. I think it's good that the Bengals are going to host the home game. From the fan perspective, just being able to go to a playoff game at the Paycor, I think is big. I think fans of the franchise deserve to see some home playoff games, so it's good that they actually got that. And then hopefully the rest sorts itself out in the coming weeks. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think the win, even though it was kind of ugly, and it seemed like at first it was going to be one of those easier type games, and then it quickly became like a divisional type game. But I think the main thing is that we get to win, and then the cool thing about it now is if we beat them next week, then we got 2 out of the 3, and then you can't say that you just split throughout the season. So we can have a deciding factor, and I hope they're healthy. I don't know if they're going to have all their people. It seems like something weird is going on with Lamar Jackson. I hope he plays. I really hope he plays. But I get a feeling that he may not. So
Yeah, you hope he plays. Honestly, I don't care if he plays or not. I just hope we win. So
yeah, I mean, it's weird.
How many games has he missed?
I think it's 6 in total for this year.
So he has not played in 6 weeks.
Maybe it's because he left like kind of early. I want to say like in the first half so it's like 6 games, but I guess 5 full games if that makes sense. But it's been about 6. It's significant. So like the last 2 years, Lamar Jackson's almost missed almost like a full season in terms of I guess 2/3 of the season in terms of games, which is pretty significant. But I mean, and honestly, and if he's holding out because of the contract situation, I don't blame him either. I mean, he hurt his leg. We don't know how bad his leg actually is. There was a lot of speculation that it was only going to be like a 3-week injury at the most. But it could be a lot worse than what most people realize. And if it's really bad, I mean, even if it's the playoffs, it's not worth risking because everything gets amplified. I also, what I found interesting was not only did they rest Lamar Jackson and a few other starters, they Huntley, their backup quarterback, was resting too. So I found that kind of interesting. But he could be hurt pretty bad too. So,
I mean, do you think that means that the Ravens just didn't care about home field advantage?
I think it tells me that they're pretty hurt. I think that's what it tells me. I mean, obviously you try like
they're just more hurt than they care about home field.
It seemed kind of like a setup. It was one of those things where like you're gonna rest some key players, especially on offense if you're kind of down, right? But most of their defensive players were there. It seemed like pretty much mainly their defensive starters were there. They seemed to rest their key players off of offense, which was like one of their guards, Zeitler, right? And then the 2 quarterbacks, and then their tight end. But outside of that, like, who else major did they rest?
I don't know.
I mean, it was also one of those games where the officiating was horrible. Like, they just would not call anything. I swear I saw, like, holding on every other play, but they're just like, oh, let's try to keep it close. It kind of felt like one of those games where, like, I don't know. There's so many calls.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of the NFL had this whole thing fixed, right? Like they wanted the coin flip to force the Bengals to have to play the game, right? It's almost as if they were doing that for TV, to make this game more impactful as opposed to having backups versus each other, right?
This is what I don't understand about the coin flip. I understand like the whole like whatever, but why don't we have a coin flip with the Bills now? Like say now if assuming the Bills and Bengals we both win the next round, right, and we get to the second round, that game should be a coin flip or like a neutral.
Well, it's all the NFL protecting themselves, right? Like they can't do anything that disadvantages Buffalo because it's like an existential issue, right? Because if people think that football is dangerous and the NFL is evil, then the ratings go down, right? So if you kind of placate things and try to make it accommodate the Bills as best you can, then you kind of reduce that chatter, right? And they want to focus on the good story, the positive story that he's recovering, which is positive and everything. But at the same time, the Bengals just don't play into that calculus, right? It doesn't matter if the Bengals get disadvantaged. All that matters is that everybody's talking positively about the recovery, and you want it to seem as though the Bengal or the NFL is not penalizing the Bills for having a player seriously injured, right? So they're kind of going out of their way to kind of plaster over all the downsides for the Bills, and ignore the fact that the Bengals were, in my opinion, on the way to win that game.
We certainly had the advantage, and
well, I mean, I don't know how anybody could think that the Bills were going to be able to stop the Bengals from scoring, having lost 2 starters in the secondary. And the Bengals were on their way. I mean, they already had a lead. They're on their way to get more points. I just don't think the Bills were going to be able to stop them that night had they continued playing the game, right?
Well, I guess since we're talking about it, I guess first and foremost, I'm glad he is doing better handling. It seems like I saw a picture where he's actually sitting up now. It seemed like
I mean, it's great news. It's great news.
Yeah, and honestly, out of that whole thing, the thing that made me happy the most was just how people responded. I just like the fact that there was like a human element, and then I felt like the players, the coaches on both sides, and like the organization itself handled themselves really well. And then for them to kind of like crap on us like that was kind of weird, because I was thinking at the very least they would consider it like a tie. That way you get something out of it, and then if anything, we should have. Like, it's an extremely horrible situation that no one could ever account for. So, but at the same time, like, I feel like we should have gotten something for it, Like, I know we had a small sample size, but it was almost, for me, enough to at least say, okay, like, say if we were to go head-to-head, then maybe you do a coin flip for that as well, right? Since they made all these other exceptions.
Yeah. I'm just trying not to dwell on the details of it.
No, it doesn't matter. But
if you look to last year, basically the Bengals won what, two road games, and then the Super Bowl was essentially a road game. So as long as the Bengals are right, they're playing well, I feel like they still have a shot to make it back to the Super Bowl and win it. So, I mean, it has a lot of WWE, WWF vibes to it. I just feel like, it just seems like something that, Jim McMahon would do to goose the ratings, right? Like it's like they want Kansas City versus Buffalo, and they're not accounting for the fact that the Bengals are just as good, if not better, right?
I think we're better than Buffalo. Like it felt like.
I mean, I feel like they're going to win that game, but I mean, does that mean that if the Bengals go to Buffalo and have to play in round 2, that I feel like the Bengals have an advantage? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but you got to beat Baltimore first. So I mean, I'm just glad that they avoided the disaster scenario, right?
Yeah, and the way I look at this game too, and I know like the logic where people, because it was relatively close, even though it wasn't that close because we still won by 11. But at the same time, there was a lot of penalties not called, a lot of mistakes that we've had, and like it was one of those games that could have been even more lopsided. But
this game?
Yeah,
this game today.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even like a real game. I mean, yeah, they won by 11, but I mean that game was never in doubt. There was no way that Baltimore was going to win that game. The Bengals played the second half to run out the clock, and Baltimore was just trying shit. They're just doing whatever. Going for it on fourth down in the first quarter, or I'm sorry, first half. I don't remember if it was the first quarter or not. Throwing it on third and long, right at their own end zone. They were just, it wasn't a real game. They weren't playing to win, right? They were just trying stuff. And the Bengals weren't playing to win by as many points as they could. They were just trying to get the W and get out, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't think you take anything from the game. I mean, the NFL, I think, in my opinion, wanted to put the coin flip out there to try to get this to be a meaningful game for ratings, and ultimately Baltimore treated it like it wasn't a meaningful game. And I almost wish that the Bengals would have done the same thing because,
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, you want that home game
Well,
from a fan perspective, right?
that was another thing. I wonder how. I mean, it looked pretty bad, Kappa, when he went down. But then I had my volume down because I usually watch it. But it looked like he was getting carted off. But then I could read his lips a little bit. And he was giving his thumbs up and said he was fine. But I wasn't sure if that was like I'm fine, like I'm gonna be okay overall, but or like I'm fine, I should be back in a few weeks, type of deal. But I don't see how he's gonna come back anytime soon because it looked like he broke his ankle. I know ankles
Yeah.
are relatively quick to heal compared to like other things, but I just don't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
where he
I
plays
don't
next
know.
week.
I
Or
actually didn't see it. I was trying to watch the game at the Bearcats basketball game, so I missed that part of it. I basically missed all of the third quarter
it's just one of those things
before I got
where
my stream up and
he was
running,
just holding up his guy, and then
and he got rolled into.
yeah, it looked like someone threw our center into his leg, and it just kind of looked like it caught him right at the
Yeah,
where his foot is. That's usually how I think linemen get hurt too. Like almost
yeah, getting rolled
every
into.
other lineman gets injured this way. It seems like seriously, it's just because it's. I think that's how Collins got, or Collins
Yeah,
got
that's how
hurt.
Collins got hurt. He got hurt on like a weird play because I remember that play. Like Burrow kind of like tucked it and kind of ran right up the where the center starts out, kind of up into the middle of the line as the pocket was collapsing. And like as he got tackled, somebody rolled up into Lyle. So, you know, no, it's not ideal. It's not good, but you hope he's back and able to play. But yeah, I mean, you're worried more about 2 weeks from now than next week. Um, you know, I think the Bengals are a legit Super Bowl contender. So you gotta handle Baltimore. I don't know. Would you rather play San Diego next week, or would you rather play Baltimore?
I think no matter what, we play Baltimore. But honestly, I probably would rather play San Diego because I don't think. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. See,
Uh,
I feel like the more the teams play against each other, the more of an advantage it is for the lesser talented team because you got to come up with weird things to try to
Yeah,
win
but
to
I feel
close the
like.
talent gap.
But the thing about Baltimore though is that it's like their defense is so fast and like you can just tell, and like I think their pass rush is like pretty consistent, like all around,
Hmm.
and it's just like they always have that consistent pressure. To whereas like I know San Diego probably has, I know they have Bosa and he's really good, but
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know. I
I
just
guess
think
you're
all
right.
around Baltimore just I think. I don't know. It's just yeah. It's just in their divisional team, so they probably know us better than other teams. I just don't have that same. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I guess I would call it fear against San
Yeah.
Diego because they always seem to. I think I want to say they were losing last time I was paying attention.
Hmm.
That's against Denver, but at the
Yeah.
same
But
time they're
then,
not.
then again, the
They're
last time the Bengals played San Diego, it wasn't good. San
yeah
Diego kind of boat raced them
yeah,
first
but
half of that game.
and then I guess for San Diego too, they're probably playing very vanilla too. Like they're not playing for anything either, whether they win or
Yeah,
lose.
you,
Nothing
you
changes.
wonder you wonder what the Bengals were doing offensively if they were trying to save plays or whatnot. I mean, you could see they set up Baltimore on like those screens, and then they had the one play where both the receivers instead of blocking just took off to the end zone. That was wide open.
Yeah, no,
Just
I feel
missed the
like
pass on that
anytime
one.
we try to do those like wide receiver screens to chase or whatever, eh, they never seem to work when it's within the division. Like they always get blown up. Like
Mhm.
there was
Yeah, because they sell out for it.
yeah.
But I mean, I feel like the Bengals could run that play again,
Maybe
where they send the both dudes
maybe
pretend to block and
that's
just
what's going
run
to happen
deep.
next week. Maybe this is like
Yeah,
foreshadowing.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't think they in terms of this game, and to what you were saying before, I don't think there's any real advantage from any team other than. Well, I personally think the Bengals overall have a better team in terms of talent, but we also have home field advantage. But I don't think this game. I don't think we really showed anything like you would show in the playoffs, right? To your point, and I do think it kind of felt like. What was that game we went up early, and then all of the New England game kind of felt like that too, where we started off hot and then we're just
we kind of like shut it down.
Yeah, trying to get out there, and then you got to be careful with that momentum. But then, actually, speaking of that, like that punt that we had, I think it was towards the end of the first half.
Yeah,
and then because it's right
at the end.
Yeah, he punted it on
like
the
40 seconds. They should have. I mean,
line.
I looked at Andy and I was like, dude, they would be stupid to throw it here. And they threw it and they gave up a touchdown. It was just like, that was stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they clearly weren't trying to win the game. They were just trying to do stuff, you know? I mean, it's just, nobody would do that. I mean, your third string quarterback, you're going to drop back on like third and, what was it, 8 or
I wouldn't
10?
say that they weren't trying to win, because I think you're always trying to win. That it's obviously to their advantage if they win, right? Because then you make it go to a coin flip for the home field advantage, which is like the silliest thing.
But they weren't playing like straight up. They were rolling the dice, so to speak.
No, they were definitely rolling the dice, because to me it just shows how hurt they are, right? Because if you give it all for this match, right, and you lose, then you don't have anything. But then you save it for next week, and because it's the NFL, right? Like any given Sunday, and you happen to have something weird happen, and somehow they win. Plus, all their guys are still healthy, so it makes sense from that perspective. So, I don't know. What I found the most interesting was that Huntley was like he wasn't even active. Like they sat.
Is he hurt?
Well, I think because I think he got tackled on his shoulder. Like it was one of those plays where like he lands on it plus the defender's body weight, and then I don't think it was his throwing shoulder, but I know those things could be really painful.
So I mean, if Huntley doesn't play and Lamar doesn't play, then the Ravens really.
No, I think at the very least Huntley will be there to play. I'm sure Lamar. If he doesn't play, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, then it's 100%. Well, obviously he's not 100%, but it has to do with his contract, and I totally get it. Especially
that's their problem.
Yeah, no, I mean they should have signed him a long time ago. That's 100% their problem.
I mean, it's just like if you. It's sort of like the NBA when they had with their max player rule. It's sort of like not every player that has a max contract deserves to be a max player. It's just sort of like if he's the best player on your team, you got to give him all the money, And if you have a starting quarterback and he's your guy, then you need to pay him like he's the best. And if you don't pay him like he's the best, then you don't get to have him anymore. It's just, somebody else is going to pay him.
Honestly, the team we're definitely getting ahead of ourselves. At least I am. Is that for next year? I'm actually more worried about the Steelers out of any of the other teams within the division, just because of how they finish the season, and like and especially if Lamar goes somewhere else, I'm sure at the very least he'll be tagged. But from what I understand, he's not going to play under a franchise tag, so I think he would definitely hold out. But if he's going to hold out, he's definitely going to get traded, which means he's not going to be in the division. And if that happens,
I don't know. I haven't watched any Steelers games where they've been on this win streak of theirs, but Kenny Pickett doesn't seem like he's a NFL quarterback.
No, I mean he's definitely an NFL quarterback, but I mean he's more lines of like. To me, he kind of reminds me of like a Fitzpatrick, like you know what I mean, like he's gonna be above average, right? But he's not gonna be like
a Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah. I mean,
somebody else wears gloves, right? They're like the same guy. Seriously,
I mean,
I'm just saying, like if that's who you're gonna roll out, then okay, that's fine. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise has a lot of hubris because they've experienced a lot of success. But they forget that they had a Hall of Fame quarterback, And it's just like you can't just put any stiff in there, expect him to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, I mean, the Bengals. I mean, we've been through decades without having anywhere near as good as Kenny Pickett, right? But like, and if that's their guy, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean he's not like. I think Pittsburgh is going to go kind of like the Bengals route. What we try to do with Dalton is where you get like an above average quarterback, but not like a franchise quarterback. That way you don't have to invest all your money into that person, and then you build. Because like you could tell like they're trying to keep most of their money on their defense, which it's like their defense is amazing. Like
right, yeah.
But
Yeah,
even their
that really works with the current NFL rules, right?
well, I
All the best
mean, but the
teams
thing
are
is that their
teams
defense
with
is
bad quarterbacks.
starting to get older too. So like they're eventually going to have to. But then again, they have a lot of good younger players.
I mean, the NFL is a quarterback league, right? If you
Yeah.
want to be a team that competes, your guy needs to be able to score with the last possession in the fourth quarter,
But I mean, I will say,
regardless of the defense.
he's played
If
a
you
lot
don't have
better
one of
than.
those guys, you're not going to win playoff games.
But Pickett has been better than what I thought he would be. I mean, that's not saying much, but I think he's definitely going to be there for a few years. They're definitely going to give him a shot.
Yeah, that's great. I've seen enough to not be
no,
worried.
yeah, no. I mean, I'm right there with you. It's just,
I mean, that's the thing. What I'm saying is their franchise and their fan base hasn't experienced hasn't experienced that for a while. I get that Roethlisberger wasn't like Hall of Fame level at the end of his career,
and
but I mean, that guy was just ridiculous.
I would say the Steelers had some pretty crappy years. I'd say there's like 8 years where they didn't have, because they had Cordell Stewart and like, who else did they have? They had
Tommy Maddox. And,
yeah, like they were just, because they just really relied on really good defense and
but that was a
strong
long time ago.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
It's definitely a different NFL, but
and it's a way different NFL, right? Like they transitioned from when you could win Super Bowls if your best player was a running back into like the era now where like you have to have one of the best quarterbacks on your team or else you're not gonna win playoff games or the Super Bowl, right? And I just don't think it's gonna work. And because we experienced it. Bengals tried that. Didn't work. Resulted in first round losses every single time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about.
I mean, it's just like you look at the Titans. That's what the Titans are doing. Doesn't work. I mean, the teams that are legit contenders are teams like the Bills, the Chiefs. I would put the Chargers in that category. Who's good in the NFC, right? The Eagles, they've got a good quarterback. Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. I mean, they're not teams that are just trying to make it on, running it into the dirt 30 times. Oh well, not worried about them. What else you got?
I guess we can just go into next week's prediction if you want to.
Okay, let's do it.
Do you want to start or do you want me to go first?
I'll start. What was the score today? 27-13?
I think it was 27-16, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the Ravens come out and really, show out, and I predict it's going to be 27-17.
27-17 Bengals?
Yeah, Bengals next week.
Okay. So, okay. I think I'm going to say, because I always feel like, especially this year, it's been an ugly game, so I'm going to say 27-24. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. Because I'm just going to assume that Lamar Jackson's going to play. So I think it's going to be a little bit closer.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, then I think it's going to be even bigger problems for the Ravens. Because everything gets amplified in the playoffs. So, like, it's going to feel like that Monday night game. So, like, this had like a weird feeling to it. Like, it's a bit of a slow start, I felt like. And then they got rolling. And then they kind of, like, slowed down a bit. And it took a little bit too long to just like close everything off, right? Just to really finish off the game, I felt like. But the main thing is that we get a win, and just hopefully they build off of it.
I don't know. I don't think it took too long. I mean, the game was never in doubt.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but I still would like to be like I mean, they are a playoff team. They're not as bad. And like I said, I get like they did rest some key starters, but there's still a lot of the majority of their starters were playing. Like I said, their defense was basically normal. I don't even know if they were
Mhm.
resting anyone on defense. Not that I could think of.
Mhm.
Or
Okay.
but nonetheless, it'll be another divisional game, and hopefully for at least on our side, I just want to see less mistakes, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And hopefully they actually officiate this time, like really officiate.
Yeah. Who was the official this game?
I have no clue, but it was just like they missed that face mask where Burrow got. I think he fumbled on that play, and then it was just like so much holding where I'm like, why aren't they calling it holding? But I'm like, I'm just in my head like they're just trying to keep it close. Like
Yeah.
it's the classic. It's weird how like the games always end up really close to whatever the cover is, right, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Very, very, very fixed feeling, right? It's a lot like the WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. I always want to call it WWF, but I don't want the World Wildlife Federation. I think I'm
is it the
Foundation.
Federation? I think it's the Foundation, right?
Yeah, I think it's
I think
Foundation.
the World Wildlife Federation. That's like where the animals wrestle each other, right? Like pandas
Yeah, it's like
versus
it's definitely a panda bears
yeah,
involved. I
yeah.
know that.
All right,
All right,
all right.
late Tros.
Peace.